On October 26, 2016, Angela Barlow sent a prophetic message through a text to her best friend, Mona. Angie was attending the home of a couple who, unbeknownst to her, were not who they claimed to be. The text contained the address of the couple's apartment on Harcourt Road in Indianapolis, Indiana, in case she were to go missing. This was the last known location Angie was known to be alive. As investigators learned, she sent a Snapchat photo out from the bathroom of the couple's apartment, who they believe lured Angie to the location. Crime Pursuit is seeking justice for Angie. Now, let's join the pursuit. Just in case I go missing, the Angie Barlow story.
Well, we are back. Finally, we are back. Welcome to Crime Pursuit Podcast. I'm your host, Ed Bounds, along with Lauren Van Sickle and Jasmine Sparkman. And we have a brand new pursuit. And we was gone for a long time. We took like a long Christmas break, didn't we?
It was extended. But we've been working through it all, but it was extended for sure.
Yes, it was. Because everybody got sick. Let me bust them out. Jasmine got sick. Lauren got sick. I broke a toe. Oh, man. It's been crazy. So, like I said, we have a brand new pursuit. This is a long, hard work case. Our team put in a lot of work with this, didn't they?
Absolutely. I mean, 3 years of it, actually. This has been a whole process, and we, through the past few weeks, have, spoke to the family, spoken to friends, and I know I've had many late nights staying up till 4 a.m, putting things together. So absolutely.
Well, yeah. And because, see, we just recently came onto it, and you had to help us out a whole lot. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay. We have a special guest with us tonight. We have Mona Jackson, and I say that right?
Yes.
Mona, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone.
All right. So let's get to the beginning. Let's first talk about your best friend, your sister, Angie Barlow.
Well, we became best friends in high school. She was a new girl coming in, and I didn't like that. So we almost ended up fighting, and then we just sat down and basically talked it out. And ever since that day, we've been together for like 10 years plus. I mean, her family is my family. We go to holidays. We go to each other's houses. Like, we stayed with each other. We did everything together. We did a whole lot within 10 years that we shouldn't have did, but we did it.
So you were as thick as thieves.
Yes. We literally was like salt and pepper.
Right. I've heard you say that before, so.
Hey, Mona, it's Jasmine. One thing I'd actually gotten the chance to talk to Christina, and I think that is super amazing. You still actually go and spend birthdays and holidays with Angie's family, even though she is no longer with us, and you still call Christina moms. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, I'm still going to interact and still be a part of the family no matter what. Like, Christina literally raised me. You know, she helped me through a lot. She helped us, you know, go back to school because when we dropped out, she pushed us to go back. She actually had to kick us out a couple times for us to get our life together. So, yeah, actually, she's like my second mom.
I love it.
All right, so just going back to that beginning. So you've been friends for essentially 11 years prior to her disappearance. You had recently together moved to Indianapolis and became roommates. Can you start telling us a little bit about that time period?
Well, she was actually here a couple years before I actually moved down here. So I would say she probably was here like 3 or 4 years before I moved here. And I actually moved in with her and another friend of ours. So I just kind of like, you know, just came down here new to the city, learning everything. And then that was basically it.
Okay. And just for our listeners, only because you've done various different interviews, would you mind telling our listeners as well as us, do you have a nickname or something else that you go by just so there's not confusion on the interviews of past podcasts?
No, I changed my name. I'm just Mona right now.
Okay. So previously though, you had gone by different names, and so now you're just
most people know me by Tracy. You know,
right?
I don't really say my first name because people can't pronounce it right. So I usually go by Tracy or Mona, or I have different nicknames. But you know, everyone got their own name to call me.
Sure.
Now, Mona, did I pronounce your name right? Because I mess names up all the time.
No, you did great.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. So now we're at the point where you've become roommates. So can you tell us about that time? Where was Angie working? What was your day-to-day routine? How involved with each other's lives were you?
Well, them years we was kind of like, you know, just living life. Like, you know, I was working like warehouse jobs or, you know, activity assistant, and she was still working at the club. So sometimes I was working and sometimes I was. So we'll get up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, get dressed, and, you know, go get something to eat, run around. Like, we used to just be out. So it was just like the type of lifestyle we was living at the time. Like, we were always, you know, doing something.
Right. So now we're at the point where let's go back to kind of those few months before, and just you describe to us what you're comfortable with telling us, but just to kind of set the stage for the listeners about, you know, her story and the case that follows afterwards. Take us back to, you know, prior to her going missing and the involvements of things that you know to be true, and kind of just tell us your side of things.
Well, I honestly feel like, because Angie has so many friends, I mean, I know some of them, like a handful of them, but once I get a bad vibe off someone, I automatically just, you know, go my separate ways. So she knew what type of friends that I like to have around us or what I didn't like. So sometimes she'd go hang out with people that, you know, I didn't like. So I don't know who, like, she really, really hung out with when I'm not around her. She had multiple friends. Like I said, she was here years before I actually knew her. So she had a fan base that was, you know, crazy.
Right.
So, I mean, I can really just like sit down and put like a name, a picture, and, you know, a face to everyone. But there's so many people that's been in our circle that it's like mind blowing. I can't keep up.
Right. Totally understand. Yeah. She definitely was popular. She definitely was popular, and, you know, being young and not having children of her own, you know, you were able to experience that nightlife, to be out in Indianapolis, meeting people out and about. You're young, you know, that's what two girlfriends do together. So we're leading into the point where she's, you know, kind of backing out of working at Club Rio, but she was there, you know, occasionally on the weekends.
Yeah, she was really trying to change her life, like, that year or so or whatever, before, a couple months before that year ended, she was like thinking like, you know, what she's doing is not right anymore. Like, so much stuff was happening in Indianapolis, so much trafficking is going on. So she actually was trying to step down from it. She only was doing it like 2 nights early out the week, or, you know, she go when she really, really needed the money. So, you know, she was taking a break from it. So she was like finding herself. She went through a lot, like working in a strip club. Like, nobody really knows. But she went through a whole lot. So, like, after she went through her situation, she just kind of, like, she started looking at things more valuable. Like, she wasn't focused on going to the strip club anymore.
Mona,
she wanted to go back to school.
Had she ever shared any aspirations of what maybe she was looking to do, you know, when she was transitioning, hopefully out of the dancing? Did she ever share any ambitions with you, dreams she had for what she wanted to do?
Yeah, she wanted to invest in like getting like a man's strip club, or she wanted something like a club scene, but more for like the ladies and not just the guys. Like she had plans, she wanted to invest in something.
Right.
But she didn't want to do like a 9 to 5.
That just wasn't her. So.
Yeah, she wasn't a 9 to 5
that
girl.
Wasn't her.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Okay, got you. So as far as just, mentioning back and I mean, what you're willing to discuss, you had mentioned, just what she had been through, and that, things were getting crazy through that world. Is there any elaboration that you can give on that?
So since everything was like, getting crazy, and she was just like falling down, and she was like gaining weight. Like when she gains weight, like she literally will stop everything because she just doesn't like when she gains weight because she's only like, 5 foot. So she's just like, I'm going to go ahead and take a vacation. So she planned the trip to take the vacation, and I was like, okay, that's fine. You got a whole lot going on. You can go ahead and take a couple days and enjoy yourself. Well, she gets down there, and it just wasn't the vacation she thought it was going to be. It was just like boring, so she wanted to come back.
Okay, so before that vacation, let's rewind just a little bit. So getting into the actual case at hand. So, let's kind of set that stage for the listeners. You and I both have talked numerous times. We have a really, good understanding of the background and everything. But for those that are listening to the podcast that do not know anything about Angie's story, we'll dive back into the Florida trip and all of that. But can you kind of just set the stage for the listeners as to what happened? She received text messages, a series of text messages, setting up this private party that she goes to attend. And she sent you a text saying, here's the address I'll be at in case I go missing. From that basis, can you fill us in on the backstory?
Yeah. So we were sitting in the living room one evening, and she was just like, look at this text message for me and tell me if you think something is really odd about it. Because, I'm like a friend that, I'm like real, I'm like safety. You got to think about safety first. So, I always double check if she do any type of private parties, like the conversation or how somebody's texting, because I'm like real paranoid about stuff like that. So I was, reading the message or whatever, and she was just like, hey, I'm this white lady, and I was wondering if you do private parties, blah, blah, blah. Basically trying to set it up, and Angie was like, yeah, because at the time Angie wasn't working, so she needed the money. So, of course she's going to go ahead and set it up for a private party, because she only did private parties for certain crowds. Like, she's not going to do it for just like some random person. Like, these people either have to have money, like, money on top of money, different type of things. So as a lady or whoever was texting her, she wasn't never showing like the upper body like picture. She was only showing the lower body. And I noticed that the skin tone wasn't it wasn't matching. If you're a white lady, why do you look like you went tanning, like really went tanning? So I'm like, okay, Angie, please do not do this private party. I just don't feel safe. And then she asked me to wear a certain color and a certain outfit. And then I'm just like, I just felt really weird about the whole situation. So I begged her not to do the private party. She was like, okay, I'm not going to do it. So I thought she left it alone. But apparently a couple days after she gets back from Florida, this random lady just texts her again. And then she goes to do the private party.
Okay, so no, back to that. So let's kind of break that down for the listeners. So she was contacted by this couple prior to her trip to Miami. And based on, I think there was a mention you had said prior that they decided to go downtown for his birthday versus celebrating with the private party. So that kind of got canceled, and she was going to Florida. So it was kind of like, okay, we're not going to do that. In addition,
right.
When she goes to Florida, she says she's not having a good time. She comes back, she ends up spending more money than she ends up making. And so when this is brought to her for $500, she's like, I need the money. So she essentially, that's when you're like, no, please don't do this. And you don't think she's going to. So that day, I'm assuming you were gone. And I know she was hanging out with another friend. They had went to dinner. So can you set the stage from there?
I was at my boyfriend's house, not even 2 streets over, just down the street. And I guess she was with another friend getting ready to actually go to the club and work. But apparently that number had texted her again while she was getting ready for work that night. And, they must have set it up a time and date for that night for her to actually meet up. And that was when she was supposed to do the private party. So that was the last time that the other friend actually seen her. She was supposed to go to work with her, but she turns around and goes to the private party instead.
So Mona, the number that had texted her previously, it was the same exact number that had texted her again this night, right?
Right.
Okay, so tell us then, after she decides to go ahead, she gets this text and decides to go ahead and do this party, did you receive anything from her? I know that there was a Snapchat sent.
I received something. I received it that night that she actually went to do the private party, but I never seen it till the next day.
Gotcha.
After I woke up. So after I wake up, she already did the private party.
Right.
That's how I knew.
Right.
About it.
And you guys were close, so just kind of set the stage for everybody with that. You guys being so close, if she was doing a private party, wouldn't it be routine for her to maybe shoot you a text or, give somebody a call and say, hey, it went great, I made this much money, or whatever the case may be?
Yes, usually that's what she always do. Like, it was just really, like, she usually would call me before either, like, she's driving to the location, because Angie, at nighttime, she can barely see. But she usually likes to talk to somebody as she's going to this spot, and especially if she's going somewhere that she don't really know and that they're white. I'm sorry, but, Angie has a variety of type of friends, but,
sure.
She's not usually around white people, so that they're white. I know she would have either called me or called Talia or called someone as she's driving to this location.
Right, so she would have been really, excited, thinking this was one of those maybe more exclusive parties, something that was going to be maybe a bigger moneymaker for her,
right?
Than her usual.
Private events, she'll pop up and there's other girls there,
Sure.
like it's actually a private party, not just, oh, I'm going to walk in, and that's a threesome to me. That's not a private party if it's going to be something like that.
So let's talk about that a bit. So she knew who Barron was prior to this, correct?
I don't know. I never seen Angie and Barron ever talk a day in my life, but apparently they probably came across each other. I'm not for sure.
So through talking to some friends, they'd mentioned that he used to come into the bar. If she would have seen them, she wouldn't have stayed.
Yeah, she probably would have.
Right, and just for our listeners, so I know this is the first time in this podcast we're throwing out this name. So kind of give people an idea who Barron is, and they're also going to hear the name Raven. So just tell our listeners where they fall into this story.
Well, as far as Raven and Barron, I just know, I feel like Raven was the one who was the one texting her, linking her over there. And as Barron, I really don't know his part in none of this. They was just a couple. They were together at the time.
Okay.
And, we get a lot of information, so.
Right. So Raven was the one that actually had sent the text the few weeks prior, and then, as we discussed, changed their mind, and then she texted again, and that's when Angie decided to do this party. And so Raven and Barron both were at this apartment that Angie went to do this private party for. So go from there. We know that Angie went, she did the party, she sent the Snapchat, and she had also sent you the text, in case I go missing, and had sent you the address. So the next morning, you wake up, you see the Snapchat. When do you kind of become aware that, Angie, nobody has seen or heard from Angie?
I was actually on Michigan Road heading to the beauty shop around 4 o'clock that evening. And my friend called me, and she was like, have you heard, have Angie called you or anything? And I'm like, no, usually she do call her, after 12 or whatever. But if she have a long night and she did a private party, I'll wait a couple hours. But it was 4 o'clock, so I'm like, let me just go ahead and call her.
Sure.
So that's when I just started calling, and it just was like, I just knew something was all that. Like, I literally just blacked out. That's all I remember.
All right, so she is missing. You make contact to Christina, correct?
Yes, I call Christina after I come back because I blacked out for like 15 minutes.
So what happens from then?
I call Christina. I call Lindsay because she lives here in Indianapolis. I just start calling everybody, and I'm like, something ain't right. Like, everybody needs to get to Indy, and we need to head down, downtown. And that's what we did. We went straight downtown.
So you guys were the first ones feet on the ground looking for Angie then?
Yes.
So there's been a lot of talk about many of different theories, many different stories that went on the news. And you and I have talked, and, there's been some false information out. There's been inaccurate info. What can you tell us to set the story straight?
I mean, everyone's going to talk because nobody really knows the truth, but, the ones that's close to her. But at this point, it's more than just one person involved. It's a group of people, and the fact that it just keeps getting longer and longer is so much that we can honestly say. Like, we can't say too much because it just keeps getting more names. Like, this is not just a one-person deal. This is a whole group of people.
Right. Okay, so then, as far, and again, we want you to talk as much as you are comfortable with talking. So you feel that obviously there were more than just these two people that lured Angie to this apartment for this private party. So, Mona, in your opinion, obviously more than just Raven and Barron had to be in this apartment at the time of this party.
Yeah, more than just them two, because for one, this type of deal that they, try to pull off is something that I'll describe it like a cartel type of thing, but not as clean like a cartel. They can, sure. It's kind of like a difference. Like, I think something went wrong with this whole situation, basically.
All right. So, that I've been working this for a long time. We've talked about, various forms of information off the podcast. So just to kind of pull everything together for the listeners. So we've got Angie. She goes to this house party. She makes it there. She sends out a Snapchat. Her car is seen leaving the scene at 3:29 p.m. with Raven's car directly behind it. Raven and Barron make the statement to police after the police finally can locate them that, she came there. She admits to being there, but she left at 3 due to 2 phone calls that she had received. Can you rewind a bit and tell me about what happened? If you guys called Angie's phone, did anybody ever speak to Raven?
Oh, yeah, we blew Angie's phone up. We even went to the apartment. When we found out, because since you sent me that screenshot of the message or whatever, I had the number at the top. So we went to the apartment location. It was like the number to get in the gate, like that same exact number. So once we realized it was that same exact number, we was like automatically like, we got to run this number and see like who lives in this apartment. And just suppose it just comes to Raven and Barron. Like, these people was normal people, probably working 9 to 5, barely surviving off a 2 weeks check. And then the minute after this happened, you guys are like paying off car notes and living life and doing things that you was not doing with your regular 9 to 5. Like, it's just, yeah. And we actually did. I mean, I didn't actually talk to her, but someone did call Angie's phone, and she basically told him, she left and her phone died, and now it's charged up. But we know Angie will never leave her phone, her purse, or anything that she owned at anyone's house that she's going to do a private party at. Like, her bags will be right next to her. If she has to dance with them on top of her, she will. So we already knew that this situation was going sour. Like, that's why we jumped on it ASAP. Like,
sure. So
we jumped on it that night.
Sure. So to clarify for listeners, at one point when you guys actually called Angie's phone, somebody answered that phone. Who answered Angie's phone?
It was a female. It was a female voice.
Did the female identify herself to you guys?
I believe she said a name, but I can't remember what the name was.
Okay. So at this time, you just have a female answering the phone. And what does she proceed to tell you guys about Angie, having Angie's phone and her answering it? What's kind of her reasoning behind that?
I believe she, honestly, before they didn't really think this out. I think they really thought that Angie was just this, regular white girl from Muncie that didn't really have family, behind her. Like, they didn't think that we were going to react as fast as we did. Like, so she answered the phone, not thinking, she's probably not thinking none of it. She really answered the phone, and then after she realized that we're on her, she stopped answering it.
Gotcha.
Everything just stops.
Not only did she stop answering it, but you went back to that apartment, and what did you notice after, what was this, 3 days later maybe?
Oh, we went to that apartment. That apartment was cleaned out. I mean, like, from head to toe.
No furniture, nothing. Like, completely
clean. Nothing. And the neighbors said that they left, like, that night or that morning. They were gone.
Had they talked to any of the neighbors or told any of the neighbors, hey, we're planning on moving, or we got another place, or they just up and were out? They didn't give any sort of indication whatsoever?
No, I don't believe it. The neighbors look like they probably didn't even associate with them, so probably not.
Gotcha. So just to recap, Angie does this party. You guys the next day realize, hey, nobody's talked to Angie. You guys are trying to find her. You're trying to figure out what's going on. And then all of a sudden, when you guys are able to head to this apartment complex, to this apartment to where Angie was last known to be, you guys find a completely clean apartment.
Completely moved out and gone.
Okay. So we've found out through, you had briefly mentioned it, but through, our investigations and others' investigations, Raven and Barron they were being served earlier in the month of October with an eviction notice. So they were 3 months behind on their rent. Their car payment was behind, and that was caught up and paid 2 days after Angie went missing. So I know that you were all made aware of that. What are your feelings of what happened that night in that apartment? What do you think happened that night to Angie? Do you think that she ever left that apartment? Do you think that because unfortunately the story is going to continue here, and 8 months after this date is when Angie was found. So, during this moment, nobody knows anything because it's 8 months before, for 8 months, she was just considered a missing person. So looking back on those moments when she was missing in your eyes, but now in retrospect, you can look back and go, wow, so what do you feel? Do you think that she, passed away immediately? Do you think she was killed immediately? Do you think she was alive for a short time after that? Or what are your thoughts and feelings on everything?
I believe after she posted the snap, she got all cute. She walked out the bathroom or wherever she was. I'm guessing the bathroom. I think things went bad then. Like, anybody knows, Angie would have been, like, Snapchatting if she taking a shot, or, if there's other girls there. She would have been Snapchatting at least until things got, serious for the private party. So I really think after she walked out that door, that's when I think things went bad for her.
And that she never... So you fully believe that Angie was killed in that apartment?
I believe she was.
I do too. But, what I think isn't, through our investigations, it just... And the, you have brought up that you feel like there's other people involved. Do you think that Raven and Barron, they're obviously in some way involved. They lured her to this apartment. They won't speak up. They won't talk to investigators. So we really don't know what their full side of the story is, because the little bit that they did give the police, were lies. They said she left at 3:00 when it was actually 3:29. That her vehicle left, so if her vehicle left at 3:29, she couldn't have possibly left at 3. She didn't call anybody else or get calls from anyone else prior. So she, has the last known location that we know for her to be is there. And then the people that were with her have lied. They have lied. So they have painted themselves, so you've got two persons of interest. The police are not even calling them suspects at this time. They're persons of interest that lured her to the apartment. We know for a fact she was there. They've admitted that she was there. They say that she left. But then when police questioned them about, well, why did your car follow behind? That's when they said, are we being arrested? And the police told them no. And they said, well, we're not talking to you anymore. And then they fled. The police have still not talked to this couple. The only police officer that's ever spoke to them was actually the detective for the missing persons case. It wasn't even deemed a murder at this point. So now we fast forward, and it's 8 months later, and the police receive a tip. Take us back to that time. Take us, slightly before then. But what information did you gather? Because you are her biggest supporter. So, you're out there asking questions. You guys, people are bringing things to you. So we kind of wrapped that up with Barron and Raven. That's what we know. And then they disappeared. What information do you know to be true throughout that time, up until the time she was found?
I don't know what's true and what's not true, because the story is just now really starting to really come out. Like, we even put so much together in 1 week, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, I basically knew this, but I wasn't for sure about it. So it's like I had this story all together, but now that it's really unraveling, I know that it wasn't just Raven and Barron at the apartment, or if, she walked in. It has to be someone that she felt comfortable with, walking into the apartment. Like, was there a white lady at the door? We don't know. Like, was there someone that was, another stripper friend of hers at that party? And, we don't know who was actually there, but I don't feel comfortable saying that Angie went to that party and Raven or Barron was at that door and she went in.
Right. I mean, I from everybody that's been, interviewed, everybody said, if she would have seen them, she was expecting, like you said, a white woman had texted her. That would have automatically made her nervous. And so obviously she went into the apartment. She took the Snapchat photo. She looked very comfortable. She's smiling. So that kind of, assesses that for us. So we, I've told you that we spoke to Detective Torres yesterday and we had an interview with him. And, he said that, we're just waiting for people to come forward. We need this information. Her body was found and was called in by its hip. So going back to that time, I'm sure that was probably one of the hardest days of your life was that June 20th.
Oh, my God. Me and my friends, we literally rode around Indianapolis, looked in certain areas. We did not see this car nowhere to be found, like nowhere at all. And to think that we will be actually looking for a body in somebody's backyard never really crossed our mind. Like, there's no way. They could have easily, just beat her up or, did something. We could have picked her up. They didn't have to do what they did to her. Like, that was just beyond crazy.
Well, let me ask you something, Mona. Just asking you, how do you think Angela was killed?
I think because of Angie. She is a fighter, and I know she's not, she's not taking anything. So I know she fought. She fought for her life. I don't know what they did to her, but she definitely fought for her life.
So have you heard in the streets or from family members or anybody to say the cause of her death? We talked about it, but I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable actually saying it unless Mom said it first. Right, I understand.
So going back to just the whole Raven and Barron and, the ideas of, like you said, Raven worked like a 9-to-5. She worked for an insurance company at the time. We personally could not find any actual job for Barron. Everybody that we've spoke to, he's been connected to less than savior behavior. He was kind of known in the streets. His street name was Rock. That he was known. I'm not saying he was, a very large drug dealer or not, but he was known to sell some drugs. He had been arrested previously. He actually had just got out of prison a year before Angie's disappearance. And then you said, you've got that feeling that other people are involved. Do you feel like through the club scene, the people that were in the club, information that Angie, may have gained through other people that she had hung around, do you feel like Angie's death was a premeditated choice by people who felt Angie knew too much?
I do. Honestly, yes, I do.
Okay, so we've had some names, like on the Fox 59 podcast, there were some names that were brought up. You know who I'm speaking of. Do you feel comfortable discussing that name?
Honestly, I really don't. Just because, I just don't want to speak up on his name.
No, I totally understand. So you feel like because of involvements and things that she knew, and the reason I'm asking you this is because, it's been put out there before that there was some jealousy, that Raven was jealous of Angie, that Angie had slept with Barron, that there was an STD passed. I know me and you have talked about this on the phone a few times, but if you could clear that portion up for us, because there's been so much focus on the fact that this was over jealousy. But what I want to remind people is, women can do some crazy things, sure. But this couple together, they had gotten married shortly before she went missing. They had LLC'd that towing company 10 days prior. They are still together to this day with more children. So you've got a couple who had no money, certainly not $500 to offer for a private party. They don't have their rent. They're being evicted, who pay up this rent 2 days later. Do you feel like they were paid for this killing?
Oh, definitely. Most definitely. Anybody that's been listening or been following their story, they can sit there and say, well, they were definitely paid, because the first thing they put out there is they was getting ready to get evicted. They paid. She had an Audi car, and they had nice vehicles, but they were behind on payments. So how did you guys come up with this money? You didn't hit the lottery. You probably didn't go to the casino to do all this. So,
Exactly.
I mean, people were paid to do certain different parts.
Agreed. All right. So now we're at the point where, her body has been discovered. That was, I'm sure, the hardest day of your life. Tell me about what you and the family went through that day, that week, afterwards. I mean, I'm sure it created so many questions in your head, but if you can tell me just a little bit about that day in particular and those moments afterwards. I know I'm asking you to speak on one of the hardest days of your life, but just so our listeners can actually, put themselves as close to being in your shoes as possible to really, let this resonate. You as her best friend, just, there was always that hope prior. She was a missing person, so there's always that hope. So this is the day that all hope gets removed for finding Angie, for her being alive. And I hate to take you back to that day, but for our listeners, what would you say about that day, those moments that week?
I mean, just driving to the location and getting out the car and walking to the back and just seeing this big hole, like that was just, it was the worst day of my life. Like, I couldn't see how somebody could sit out there and dig a freaking hole for somebody and just throw them in there and just go about their life. Like,
I mean, and it was a deep hole, correct? I mean, it was
pretty deep. Like, it took some time. I mean, there was a water bottle out there. Like, these people was out there for a while digging this hole.
So there's a water bottle out. Did the police collect that water bottle?
I'm not for sure if they did or not.
Because, I mean, at this point, there's so much information that's out there. There's so much. Tell me how you feel about the fact that there's not a warrant in place. Nobody's been arrested. What are your feelings? I mean, I know we've talked that you've said, we've taken this information to the police. We provided them with this. What are your feelings on that? How hard is that for you as the best friend?
Knowing that we can sit down and, figure some of the story out without them helping us, and they still won't get a warrant. And we have from A to Z of everything that literally happened that night. And for them just to be out here living life, like, we just want a warrant. Like, why can't you guys just knowing that they're downtown or these people are locked up or anything on a holding cell or whatever it is, like, why can't we just get someone that was involved with this downtown locked up? Like, that's all we want.
Well,
the more people we get, I'm quite sure people will talk.
Well, when we spoke with Detective Torres, he told me and Lauren that it just wasn't enough.
How is this not enough?
Well,
like, y'all literally letting people get off. Like, y'all dug a hole in somebody's backyard and buried somebody.
Well, he said he need people to come forward, people that were directly involved, because I believe, maybe he believes, that it was more than just these certain two people that were involved. And Detective Torres said he needs more people to come forward.
But what are these people scared of? I mean, like, oh, this is so stressful.
Well, I mean, they could be scared of dying. I mean, because when
yeah, that too, but even if whoever opened the door for Angie, I mean, if they can come forward, like, we just need someone, Raven, maybe. I mean, she can, I don't know, but somebody needs to come forward. Like, I'm not understanding how they don't have enough. Like, how can you tell her mom, Christina, that there's not enough to lock up some people?
Now, do we know did she happen to text and say how many people was at this little party? Did that ever come up?
No, she never sent out a text and say, hey, there's like 10 people here, or no. She's just like, I'm here at this, location or whatever. And
so on the premise of that, we would think, she walked in, she's thinking, okay, I'm here to get ready. People are probably still coming. There was obviously, certain people there to where she felt comfortable. So she was expecting a white woman. So, from, just kind of deducting what we know and kind of lining it up with what would need to have happened for this to work, we can kind of assume that there had to have been a white female there to be prepared to open that door. Had to have been. Obviously, obviously Raven did it.
Had to open that door, and it has to only been that white female present at the time that Angie could see. There probably been other, they probably came in and snuck in, or they probably was already in the apartment. We don't know. Like, it probably was just Angie and the white lady at the time, and then next thing you know, she comes out and here something happened.
Right. Hey, Mona, really quick question for you. So, I know that you talked about, the day that Angie was found, and that being the worst day of your life, and just kind of the emotions you went through. My goal is, and what I want people to understand, is we all have a job we go to, right? Whether you work a 9 to 5, whether you're a waitress, whether you're a dancer performing. But when you lost Angie, when Angie was gone, Angie was more than just, a stripper, more than just a dancer. And I know that there's been a lot of emphasis put on that, that kind of her job plays into this. But we all know everybody is so much more than your job.
Right.
Tell people listening, what did you lose? What did you lose that day when you lost Angie, and what did your family lose? You didn't lose Angie the dancer. Who did you lose?
I lost literally one of my sisters, my best friend. I mean, we were together, literally like salt and pepper. We lived together. She goes somewhere, I go somewhere. Like, I lost, like, ever since I lost her, I don't feel safe. I don't really hang out with people because I don't know who's involved. Like, my whole life has changed since then.
Absolutely.
And since she's been gone, it's just like, you can't trust nobody in the world, because look at this. When you try to trust somebody, stuff like this happens because of money or of he say, she say stuff, or what you've seen. Like this, I just literally lost everything. Like, it took me almost 2 years to really, go outside or feel comfortable going to the mall or, doing stuff like that, because I feel like whoever is involved with this still knows that, they still watching every move I make, or, they're still on my social media, or they know, they might call or text me because I don't know who's involved. Like,
Sure.
This is so deep. This is really deep.
Sure.
This has completely changed your life all the way around. I mean, everything that you knew up until that moment is completely different at this point. Going back a little bit, we assume that there's obviously other people involved. There's other people that could come forward and speak. However, they're not. If you could, just woman to woman, if you could address Raven and make a statement to her, assuming that she's listening, what would you want to say to Raven? What would you ask of her?
I just really want to know why. And I mean, if I don't know her situation, but all it takes is a phone call. Like, you don't have to necessarily come to Indy and, present yourself, but all you have to do is give us a call and let us know. Like, we just need to at least know a little bit more, or what was your involvement. Like, that's all we want from her.
Exactly. And I mean, and this isn't going anywhere. This isn't going away. Angie's not coming back. So what's been done has been done. It's completely changed your lives, her family's life, and essentially their life. I mean, they have to be looking over their shoulder every single day. Just like you say, well, I'm scared and I have to worry about this, I have to worry about that. They're living a life one and the same. I mean, I can imagine, what that's got to be fearful for them. I mean, when you see red and blue lights behind your car, you have to wonder, oh my gosh, is that for me? So, I mean, when I was talking to Detective Torres, that was one thing that I said. I said, what would you say to these people? And he's like, well, of course, come forward. And I said, but how many times do you have a crime where criminals actually come and tell on themselves? It's not often. But with this, there is so much information out there. There is names, there are address. We know she was there. So this isn't going away for them. And, I said to him, I said, I know you probably can't say this, but through other cases that you've seen, you've worked with, has it not fared better for the persons of interest, for the suspects, when they speak to you, when they give you their story, versus them solving this case and pulling you in on that warrant? And he said, well, absolutely. The prosecution's much more likely to be, more lenient if you're showing remorse. If she wasn't made, for all we know, Raven is only involved simply because of the fact that Barron is. We don't know, but that's her chance to speak up. We don't know that she wasn't forced to do this. She may not, have wanted to participate in this, but she has 2 little girls, or I believe 2 little girls, but I know she has small children that she may listen to this podcast, but when she gets done listening to it, she has to look at those kids in the eyes and go take care of them. They're going to grow up one day. This could potentially be them, sadly. So these kids don't have anything to do with it, but she's a mother now, so she has to think about that. And we urge her to certainly contact us. We will be that break and what, you need to talk to the police. We will help you do that. We will put you in contact with the right people. If you don't want to talk to the police and you'd rather just talk to us, we welcome that certainly as well. Certainly.
And like I said, like even if she didn't, we don't know her part of involvement in this, but it was tied to your apartment, honey. Like, you have something to do with it. You know something about it. You have to know something. You and Baron are married. Like, he either said something to you or he gave you an idea of what was going on because that's where you lived at. Like, you knew something was going to happen that night.
Well, and she's the one that was texting. It came from her number, so she helped set it up. She certainly participated. I'm just saying.
We don't know to what degree. It may have not have been willingly. She may have been just as much of a victim. At this point, nobody's aware as to what degree the involvement was. Nobody knows. Was it willingly? Was it unwillingly? Was it something maybe that was forced to do? I think that's one of the big missing keys for everybody in this case.
Because they won't speak, so what they won't speak on, we can't answer for them. But so here we are, we're in 2020. We've got October, at the end of this year, that will mark 4 years. What are your hopes? What are your thoughts? Where is everyone at today? I mean, this is, I would assume, just like it's October 26, 2016 when she went missing. It's just like June 20th, the day that she was found. Have your lives pretty much stayed on pause?
I feel like it's just that same year, another day, because I'm not going to stop. Like, every day, I'm still, listening, asking around, still wearing her T-shirts just to see if, someone approached me and asked me something about her or tell me something. Or, I'm never going to stop until I get a call and say that somebody is downtown for Angie's case. I'm going to continue to figure this out. If no one helps me downtown, I'm going to do it myself, and me and my friends will figure it out. And then, we'll go from there.
Yep. So you're never going to stop advocating for your best friend who you've, often called just throughout this podcast. And I know your sister, which I can totally relate to. I have a best friend. I call her best friend, but that's my sister. So I can completely empathize with you on that. She and I have been together since we were 15 years old. So we're going on, 16, 17 years together now. So you fully intend to not ever stop advocating for Angie until you have answers, and that's how you're going to keep her alive.
Oh, I'm definitely never going to stop. Everyone knows that. I don't care if I have to stop talking to everybody in the world and just talk to my family. I'm going to figure this out. I got 75% of it, but when they arrest somebody, I'll be at 100%. But right now, I'm a little messed up in the head about this situation, so I'm never going to stop. I never have my peace until I get these people down.
I can't even imagine. You were extremely strong. I've told you that before, but I certainly admire you. We are certainly honored to be able to speak with you, and
absolutely,
especially about something that is the hardest portion of your life. To open up about that is huge. It's extremely courageous. And like you said, you already are living in fear. You have to look over your shoulder. I know she had worked in the club, in and out. There's other friends that, you all would hang out with. What is the opinion of the other friends, specifically the ones that were dancing that were, also working with her? Has anybody told you anything that they lean one way or the other, or that they feel like they have some involvement? Or have you actually ever looked at anybody from that circle and thought, wow, I don't know, I can't even trust you anymore? How has that changed that atmosphere of people?
I definitely sit down. I have a list of, everyone that I interact or, that I remember or seen her with. I got question marks about certain people because the environment and, the ties that Angie and that person had with another certain person. So I actually sit down. I question mark some of them, and I still do to this day because I don't trust none of them. I never trust. There's only a handful I trust, and they know who they are because I still, talk to them. We still hang out. They're like my sisters, but some of them, no. I don't trust none of them.
Because you just never know.
There was jealousy in the clubs. I seen it all the time. Many people was jealous of Angie because Angie was a different type of female, So I seen jealousy all the time. So I automatically, I go off people's vibes. So I know. So yes, I do think some of, yeah.
So when you say different kind of female, tell us what you mean by that.
I mean, Angie a go-getter, regardless of anything. She's going to get her money if she got a broken toe, a broken arm. Like, this girl will get money regardless. She can find different ways to make money. She always had friends. She always had nice stuff, you know. She was very independent. That's one thing people really didn't like. And plus, she was a white girl. Like, the white and black thing, I don't understand what's the big deal about it, but Angie was a white girl, and she had majority of Mexicans and black friends and, you know, people from the hood and, you know, friends all over the world.
Yeah.
She was white, and they didn't like it. You know, some white girls was like, that's the white girl with all the black. You know how people talk.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And watching her move, and, you know, she can make money. She was really good on the pole. Like, she was a real good dancer. Like, she actually danced at the strip club. She didn't do all the extra.
Right. What would you say, looking back at all of this and seeing that, you know, you've participated in multiple interviews with other podcasts, with, you know, news stations, what is out there that you would like to change? What could be said? What have you heard that you would like to clear up? If you're being Angie's voice right now, you know, speaking up for her and all the information that's out there, what do you want people to focus on? What do you want people to forget?
I really just hate how they first came out with it. Like, you know, this stripper, entertainer girl that works at a strip club, yada, yada, yada. They basically said this happens all the time, that she works at a strip club. No, it doesn't. I mean, it does happen all the time, but in certain situations, this didn't happen just at the club. This happened somewhere else. And we got, you know, we had our list of stuff that we knew about. So it wasn't just like she just was stripping and somebody just took her out, you know. No. Angie did strip in the strip club, but she wasn't a messy stripper like that.
Well, it doesn't make a difference if that was her profession. That was her job.
Yeah, it didn't make a difference. Like,
right.
Most of our friends worked at a strip club or was a full-time stripper. So everyone experienced dancing on a pole before. I mean, everyone knows how to dance.
And
so
that was her job. That was her job. And for people to judge for that, still, she was somebody's daughter. She was somebody's sister, and regardless of her profession, it shouldn't matter here. What matters is she's dead. And
what matters is we have our own evidence. Like, we didn't sit down, not even with the help of the detective or the police. Like, we all then came together and really put this together. Like, we have from A to B and A to Z or whatever. So it's like, the stripper, okay, she works at a strip club, okay, we get that. But Angie also was someone's sister. Like, she took care of many of people. If you needed anything, she would give it to you. Like, when we go back home, she would, you know, take care of her friends, her mom. Like, Angie wasn't just a stripper and just thought about herself. She actually took care of people.
Exactly. And I mean, and this is important. We literally did an interview earlier where I explained all of those same reasons. You know, she is somebody's daughter. She's somebody's your best friend. So we are at the point where, you know, we know what we know. You've talked to the detective. You've talked to me. We've got some information. There's some information that's already out to the public. There's some that, you know, we've all held back. You know, Christy and I talked yesterday, and, you know, I said, is there anything I can't just, you know, and she said, well, we're just tired. You know, we can't understand why there's not a warrant. We can't understand. To give the public and people that are listening an idea of what, you know, without implicating yourself or putting yourself in danger, could you just summarize information for me on what you believe to be just a brief summary of what we know? You know, because based on what you've told them, you know, firsthand information, things of that nature, you know, you're like, I can't understand why there's not a warrant, why we're not going after these people. So what information can you give that listeners or people listening could be aware of, that there could be somebody out there who knows a little bit but doesn't think that anybody else knows enough to where it matters? You know what I mean? So if the news is portraying one thing, they're like, well, they're not even on to us, or they don't have enough to come after us. And so that's going to quiet other people down. But if they knew that there was a little more out there that would give them that worry, people might come forward and speak on them because they don't want to get pulled in it too. So what would you say that you could add to this information that would be something that people don't already know, but also clarifies? Because you don't believe that this, you know, that this is a jealousy thing with Barron. You don't believe that that's the story. So what could you add to that?
I don't think it was jealousy with Barron at all, because Angie, she wasn't to fight. I mean, she wasn't the type to really be jealous over just one guy unless she really was like years with this guy. So I don't think it was no type of jealousy. I mean, if she did what she did with him, then okay, she'd keep it moving. But this was more of a, maybe my best friend knew something. Maybe, you know, she was into something that I didn't know about, because when she's into something like deep or something, she won't really tell me about it because I have a strong opinion about it and I wouldn't like it. So I don't know because when she came back from vacation, she wasn't acting right. Like, she wasn't her normal self. So I don't know what happened in between the months or what happened before she went on vacation, but Angie was not herself. And I still, to this day, I don't know what happened before and after, you know, like when she was doing her mental, like, you know, she wasn't feeling herself anymore. I don't know what happened, but I know something deeply happened that caused her to be in this position, like something really bad.
Right.
Well, Mona, I want to say we really do appreciate you taking the time to come out here tonight, you know, to tell your friend's story, your sister. What you did is a brave thing. And I'm going to be honest. When we was talking to Detective Torres, I'm pretty confident he's going to solve this case. It's just something, I just got this vibe. I really believe he's going to solve this case.
But how long is it going to take?
Well, that's another question. I would like to wish this thing to come to an end like today.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, right. But he looked me dead in my face and he says, Ed, we don't have enough. We need people to come forward. We need people to come forward. Yeah, and I understand. I really do. So just know that we're going to stay involved. You know, Lauren's dedicated to this, and now she's got me addicted to it. And just because we, you know, are doing a podcast, it doesn't mean it ends here. And it doesn't. So you just keep fighting, and you keep continuing to get her name out there and keep people involved like you do with Lauren.
You're certainly, I mean, your strength blows me away. I mean, and we've talked numerous times, and like I've told you, I mean, getting this podcast out there, getting this information out there, telling the story of who Angie was, you know, as a person is ultimately our goal. But, you know, we do hope that, you know, the perpetrators are listening and that this creates a fear and a worry and it lets them know that people are not stopping. You know, it may have been almost 4 years, but that hasn't changed anything for those that care. So we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I'm
not going anywhere.
Good for you. And I'd like, you know, I just want to say, as victim's advocate, I super duper empathize with you fully on that, just because, like I had said before, I've got that friend that turned into a sister. And I just want to say, you know, Lauren's so right on that. You are so strong, because I know when I'm going through anything, the very first person I want to call is my sister. You know, anytime that I've got something big or exciting that's happened, or when I've had a really rough day, or, you know, whatever the case may be, I want to call my sister. And, you know, unfortunately, that's been taken from you. And you've still managed to continue pushing forward and being her voice. And I just want to commend you for that. That is amazing. It's not very often in this world that we make a connection with a person that will stick up with you and for you like that. So thank you for continuing to be your sister's voice. That's absolutely phenomenal. And you've made it clear that you're willing to do that at all costs. And that just makes you an incredible human being to me. Thank you.
No problem.
We want to remind everybody that, you know, this is a 3-part series. So this is bringing everything to light, getting, you know, introduced to the case. But Mona will be back next week. We will be on the air with Mona and Angie's parents. So this is kind of just the tip of the iceberg. So we still have a lot more to cover. We hope that you will continue to follow us through this story. And we'll continue to be in contact with the family and the friends. So
yes, we will. Now, I want to apologize ahead. There was a lot of clattering noise in the background earlier, and that was due to RTV6. Film crew was in here. They had interviewed Lauren before the podcast. They was, you know, doing video of us in here. So the cameraman was making a lot of noise. So I know people, Mona, because people, they go off on me. They don't go off on Lauren and Jasmine. They'll inbox me, Ed, what was all that noise in the studio? Who was doing this? Who was talking while you was talking? Ed, I don't like that. So Mona, I had to just make it clear, because I know when this is released, people are going to be like, what was all that noise? Who was...
Well, and bear with me as well. I just got over a horrible sinus infection, and I stayed up all weekend preparing for this first recording, and then you heard me I had to leave the room a few times, so I apologize about that cough, but yeah, we weren't postponing this podcast, so I'm sorry you had to deal with that cough, but it had to happen today.
It's okay, honey.
So I apologize.
Right.
And I apologize that I sound like Dorothy Zbornak in the flesh right now. I actually just went to the doctor today, and I have a sinus infection. So.
Oh, girl, stop. You sound good. What are you talking about? She sounded like Mary Poppins on the microphone. So, okay, guys. Now, we made an announcement. We have left SoundCloud. We are back up with iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Podcasts, a lot of other ones. TuneIn. We're also with we got a YouTube account.
Yeah, we've got iHeart, Spotify, Stitcher, Google. We've got
Anchor. We're with Anchor now.
Launchpad.
Yes. So we're everywhere now. So we're getting everything. We had to go back and reformat everything. So a lot of people reached out to me on that moment, like, Ed, what's the hold up here? We can't get it. So now, the new platforms are back up and running. All right, like Lauren said, there will be a part 2
and 3,
and Mona will be with us again. Mona, thank you so much.
I will.
All right,
You're
everybody
welcome.
have a good evening, and we'll see y'all at part 2.